Hey guys, Matthew here once again, and I do have the follow-up video for the Shattering Steel Dick Stacking Scion, which was a Slayer comboed with Pathfinder, and if you are unaware, that is a pretty good combo at this stage, because Slayer does give you immense amounts of overleech and reliable way of recovering your life, while Pathfinder does give you a bit of damage, bit of speed, but of course, some sustainable flasks. So naturally, a character like this has no real choice but to succeed, even though it's using Shattering Steel, which isn't anything too special, but with the what seems to be somewhat busted mechanic of Shattering Steel's fork support, basically letting all projectiles hit, it's in a decent enough place to be a respectable skill. Prior to trying out fork, it's not really anything. Once you combo fork with GMP, it certainly starts to hold its own and actually feels like it's potentially better than most other skills you could put in here, like a Frostblades, like a Spectral Throw, both of which do work as deck stacking and this type of setup, a Scion, and Spectral Throw is still one of my favorites and still works very nicely. This, however, has some front-loaded type of damage. When you're right on top of an enemy, you have really good single target, as you can see sometimes here, whereas Spectral Throw always has its kind of medium damage going out, so you'll be doing pretty reliable damage, but not quite as high burst. You specifically need to swap in Slow Approach for your Spectral Throw to really start to succeed. To the same level that the Shattering Steel does, basically at all times. So it's very convenient playstyle to be able to have a good single target and then have a decent clear at your own whim. So whenever you're really up close, that's when you want your good single target, but it does mean you won't always have your maximum amount of damage because you're not always up close to things. And that does get a little bit annoying against some targets like betrayal enemies when there's 4 of them out there, for example. Chances are you're only really dealing your maximum amount of damage to 1 or 2 of them, and so the other 2 are staying alive fairly healthily. But that is part of why I built Scion Slayer as this character, because I knew it would have to kind of be a bit of a melee playstyle when you want your real damage, and that means face tanking certain things and being really up close and personal with enemies. And that's where Slayer Scion Leech comes into play. You really can tank a lot of things with this character or this type of setup, and in the end it was probably one of my safest, best all-around characters, even though it's Shattering Steel, so proof that that can kind of work. And deck stacking is kind of just a medium that gets you there, but you don't necessarily have to do it. You can build Fizz Daily Conversion, you can just stack Added Cold, Add Lightning, whatever you really want, but deck stacking is what I chose to do this time, and as I said, one of the safest characters for me in recent times, because with just a little bit of effort of trying to stay alive, I did manage to end up getting about level 92 without dying once, and that includes an entire run of Guardians and Uber Elder. So technically a hardcore run all the way up to my first Uber Elder kill, and including a few of these types of bosses, this Lich, for the depth delve level like 350 or something like that. I also went into my deepest depths of like 400, and then I started to do a few slightly more dangerous things after I got the full Uber Elder run done, and so I have of course died a few times in the character in the end, but the point is you definitely can build a lot of this shit as pure hardcore viability if you just try and build around it a little bit and actually play around it. So it's just a bit of proof that, yeah, a lot of this stuff can be hardcore viable, especially if you have the right setup, the right tools at your disposal, which in this case can oftentimes be gear. But if you're often wondering, can this shit be done on hardcore for some of my builds, chances are yes. It's just up to you to actually change your playstyle or change certain aspects of your gear or defense strategy to fit the hardcore narrative, because I'm always building my characters just for whatever purposes I need, and that is usually softcore and going fast and not giving a fuck. If you want to build slightly more hardcore based, you can, in most cases, just change your setup a little bit and change your playstyle a little bit. So you can see the single target here is not mind-blowing, not the biggest single target in the world, but it is actually pretty decent, especially considering the fact that I don't have any Vaal skills carrying me here. This is pure just shattering steel damage. There's no Vaal skill cheese involved, there's no Vaal double strike, there's no war chiefs, there's no, you know, Vaal RF, Vaal storm call. It is just shattering steel damage, and it is kind of just, I don't know, wonky. You can see sometimes when you get the perfect setup on a boss that's not moving and really lets you set up, it has some incredible damage. Sometimes you're just a little bit off of it and it feels kind of weird. And then I did, of course, test Spectral Throw for you guys as well. This is with 0 proj speed, slower proj Spectral Throw. It's probably got about the same amount of optimal damage, but it should be easier for you to get this optimal damage going more often than not. And if you're gonna play Spectral Throw with a character like this, I do strongly recommend getting just a little bit of proj speed somewhere on your tree. There are quite a few nodes around of the passive tree that we have, because with absolutely default proj speed, you are damn near melee with your slower proj, and it does feel kind of wonky. And then once again, I also recommend changing the sort of setup on your bar so that you don't always attack without moving. That is also kind of detrimental to your spectral throwing. You want to shift click whenever you really want to shift click, and you want to otherwise just stand back and right click an enemy, where your spectral throw will then run just a little bit to get to the enemy. So it's a much nicer playstyle. If you have always enabled attack without moving, there are times where you're just not going to be close enough to the enemy and shoot out a spectral anyway, and thus you're going to end up doing no damage to it. So that's what I was doing, and it did feel a bit wonky for that. But otherwise, spectral throw is still very good. Just get a little bit of proj speed, same exact build, same exact setup, and it's certainly a choice you can make. It doesn't have to be Shattering Steel in this character. You can probably play all kinds of different skills. It is just a method of building a character, some deck stacking, some flat cold, and then of course Scion Slayer Pathfinder. So that's a bit of a template for this character and for this type of build, guys. That's it from me. I will leave you with the Shattering Steel first Uber Elder kill. Still deathless. Up till this point, we were technically hardcore. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. I want to do my best to set up optimal DPS scenario, and it's just rough to find it. Like that. Ow.
M'lady. Gaze into the eyes.
I think it feels so much better on Spectral Throw for this fight. So it'd be nice if I can get a comparison later. Also not being chill immune's actually pretty annoying at the moment. Not the end of the world, especially if I don't get hit by stuff. Whoa, why was I not fucking shooting for a second there?
Embraced by method.
Yeah, just so much of the time I don't want to be right on top of a boss, and it means I have crap damage. So I've essentially turned myself into a name-locking melee ability, right? Because that's how they have to play. Which isn't the end of the world, right?
I have nothing more to give.
Couldn't leap over that section. Almost died. On the other hand, doesn't matter. Hardcore viable. Easy clap. Solo self-found hardcore deathless. Shattering steel uber elder. I solo self-found that. And that.
M'lady.
And that. My best items solo self-found.